the traffic conditions there, and I hope that the updates will be able to help those who are making their way to and from the city as they go on with the day's business to make the very best possible decisions. Allow me return to the studio and get our Kickstarter discussion underway, and we shall be looking at regional labor integration, analyzing labor mobility across the East African region. This particular discussion comes on the backdrop of a development that is very political, but speaks to the core of the ability of every Ugandan, Kenyan, Tanzanian, Rwandan national, South Sudanese to travel across borders and be able to conduct labor business as smoothly and as effectively as they may want. There are, of course, hurdles that are still being faced by many people. But before I introduce my guests, let me just take you through a preamble. The protocol on the establishment of the East African Community Common Market was signed and entered into force in 2010. It was projected by December 2015 the common market would be fully implemented. That is still lurking. The common market is the second regional integration milestone of the East African Community, which has been in force since 2010 in line with the provisions of the EAC Treaty. The concept involves the elimination of all obstacles to intra-community trade in order to merge the national markets into a single block, bringing about conditions as close as possible to those of a genuine internal market. This is high on the minds of very many people, and we shall be joined online by Honorable Ole Sankok. He's a member of parliament in the East African Legislative Assembly. Over the last 1 month, we've spoken to him here on Morning at NTV as he was part of the MPs that convened in Kampala to deliberate on a range of issues. I have with me in the studio George Masisi, a lawyer with PACE Advocates, and I also have Kasim Kamgisha, a lawyer too, and also Deputy Resident City Commissioner for Wakiso. Gentlemen,
this is not yet a city.
It's not yet a city.
Yeah.
It's still a district.
Yes.
Thank you for that correction. Gentlemen, welcome to Morning at NTV.
Thank you, Chris. Morning to viewers, and pleasure to be here.
Glad to see you once again. Allow me go straight online and welcome Honorable, I was going to say General. Is there any chance that you might switch to the military when I begin to think about General? Honorable Ole Sankok from Nairobi, you're welcome to Morning at NTV.
Thank you very much, my brother, and I really miss Uganda. You know, I was there in Kampala, and I really enjoyed it. And you calling me General, there was also the Speaker of the National Assembly of Uganda who called me the worship mayor. Anyway, from your question, I think for us, the Common Market Protocol have been duly implemented because, you know, we have 4 pillars in the East African community. That is the Common Market, the Custom Union, also the Political Union, and the Monetary Union. The last two, the Monetary Union and the Political Union, may not have been implemented fully, but for the Common Market and the Custom Union. Because for labor relation, there must be implementation of the Custom Union, so that a citizen from any of the 8 member states can work freely in any of the states. And as you are aware now, there is no requirement in any of our state of a visa for you to be able to travel to any of our member states. There is also no requirement for a work permit for citizens from Burundi to work in Kenya, from Kenya to work in Uganda, and from Uganda to work in the Federal Republic of Somalia. So for us in the legislative arm, we are quite excited that we are one of the most progressive common economic bloc in the whole of our region. And I think, let us give credit to where it is. We are free in terms of movement of our citizens from one region to another. We also have, in terms of labor relation, labor also come with skills. And we have the Inter-University Council of East Africa, EAC, which makes sure that our training is kind of harmonized, so that when a doctor is trained in Makerere University, it does not require any other qualification for them to work in the United Republic of Tanzania or in Kenya. And the same with an engineer trained in Kenya. So we also have, in terms of training of our profession, a commission that is called EAC, in the University Council of East Africa, that makes sure that our training is harmonized so that our citizens can be free to work in any corner of our economic bloc.
Thank you very much, Honorable David Ole Sankok, for that opening submission. I'll be returning to you very shortly. Allow me engage my guests in the studio, George Musisi, a lawyer, as well as Kasim Kamgisha, lawyer and Deputy RCC Wakiso. Listening to Mr. Ole Sankok, the picture I do get is that things are moving pretty well, and we are positive that the aspirations that are laid down in the protocol on the establishment of the East African Common Market and all the labor-related aspects within it are moving in line. I just want your look at the state of affairs right now across the region. You are lawyers, and let me begin with George. Have you practiced in Kenya or Tanzania lately?
No, I've practiced in Tanzania in the court, not to handle local matters, in the Arusha court, East African court, which doesn't require any. It has for it access to it as long as you are practicing in any of the countries. Yeah. Any of the African countries, you can get audience. What the Honorable is saying is actually from the point of Kenya. When you talk about integration, Kenya seems to be a step forward in terms of one, even economically, as the economic engine of the region. That's right. Certainly, it tries to set the trend. However, when it comes to labor migration, Chris, you realize that there are some other key requirements that may be needed. Take an example of what he has cited, the issue of legal practice. And all professional bodies, engineers, medical doctors, you'll find that there are other requirements that may be needed which are unique to each country. Each country has its own requirements. That is right. To practice or get audience before Ugandan courts, the laws of Uganda require a particular requirement. And so does the laws of Kenya, Tanzania, and so on and so forth. So, and even as lawyers, we had this debate over 6-7 years ago on cross-border practice. And the fears have been that, well, we may be swallowed up by the bigger economy, that is being Kenya, that if you allow cross-border practice, you might not return. There are those sorts of protectionism every time there is talk of integration. And it happened in the UK when it was at the bottom of the Brexit, saying that, okay, aren't we losing ourselves to the bigger entity? So there is that fear. One of the smaller economies that we may be swallowed up, and so you find that the protocols, the common market, the customs union have not been followed by individual countries making the requisite changes in their laws and policies. So for Kenya, it's a step ahead. You said that he's talking about no work permits. Of course, for visa, it's okay. But how about those other requirements which other countries, the smaller economies, have not? So there are fears, some of them, of course, from a selfish point of view, but then the others, we've not had a bigger discussion at a political level that if you're talking about labor, can we have a common discussion on this and we do away with all the barriers so that let's have a deadline for all countries to remove unique requirements, to mean that if a Ugandan doctor has a practicing certificate in Uganda, they can practice anywhere in the region without going through another set of maybe application and so on and so forth. So those are some of the issues. And of course, even attendant, the labor laws. The labor laws are not the same.
Not the same.
Uganda, we're still grappling with the issue of minimum wage. And every time on 1st May, it comes up for the last 10 years. So you find that there will always be challenges when you talk about cross-border migration.
Okay. Kasim Kamgisha, listening to lawyer Masisi and of course Honorable Ole Sankok, you get the whole picture that a lot needs to be done by all actors within the region in order for us to achieve the kind of harmony that we want. But Masisi introduces something that is at the cornerstone of the current developments within the region that have Martha Karua failing to practice law here in Uganda. The need to either receive certification or permission. Is it an issue of competence or ability to operate smoothly? Because if Martha Karua, given her reputation as a senior attorney at law, we wouldn't expect any hurdle at all in the receipt of a license in order for her to practice. But somebody would say the politics of the day has played its part, and to pretend that you do not know that is also a problem on its own.
Take 1 second, Chris. Imagine a driver, Ugandan driver, saying that if you reach the Kenyan border, you have to get another permit.
You get another,
when you reach Tanzania, you have to get a permit for.
What's your take on that?
I want to thank the Honorable Sankok for the foundation he has laid.
Yeah.
That we have to appreciate what we have in a period of 22 years, because the East African community had collapsed. And the living presidents then in the 1998-99 revived it. So in 22 years to have taken a step where you can freely move to almost 6 countries in the region is a step forward. Now, coming back to matters of labor movement, every country in the world will always have to protect its market, consciously or subconsciously. And the lawyering market is not exceptional.
That is right.
Now, the issue of requiring a practicing license for every advocate within Uganda is not a matter of Karua Martha. It is a matter of law. Council Mosise agrees with me that this is stipulated in the Advocates Act. I think Section 11, he will guide me, that to practice in courts of judicature in Uganda, you must have a practicing license issued by the Uganda Law Council.
Law Council, yeah.
Therefore, Martha Karua is not exceptional. That as a practicing lawyer within the region, she might not practice in Ugandan local courts when she has not gotten a licensing certificate. So what we should be discussing is that at the integration level of East African and community, we should think about domesticating some of the policies at that level. If the policy is we need a common market for our lawyers in the region to practice at local courts level, then we should be talking about amending, for example, the Advocates Act, the Labour Act, to ensure that it removes the barriers which can impede. Of course, Martha Karua is a figure. She was the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. There is no doubt about her competence in law. There is no doubt about her integrity in the law. But then Uganda might not, at this point, informally amend the law to accommodate Martha Karua because of what she is. So, whereas politics and the law cannot be separated. But in this case, we're talking about politics, but also we're talking about the guiding principles of practicing law in Uganda. So my take is that let our legislature begin thinking about these other impediments which can impact on the progress of the East African community integration as a whole. we are looking at the movement of persons. There's no visa requirement, there's no everything. But also when we talk about an example which he gave of drivers, my father was a truck driver 10 years ago. There's no requirement of a driving permit when you enter Kenya. So that was thought before. Let other professions begin looking at how to influence amendment of rules to accommodate ourselves within the bigger market of East Africa. So whereas politics in this case are at play, but for the issue of Martha Karua, it is a matter of law which can be settled. By the way, there is a provision that you can get a practicing license for only the matter you're going to represent in court, but you must be attached to a law firm within the country. So we should be asking ourselves, is Martha attached to a law firm in the country?
She is attached to Lukwago and Company Advocates.
I wouldn't want to ask when she got attached. It could be politics that has attached her to that. But moving forward, those are things you have to begin looking at. That why should I get a practicing license for a matter in a day in East African community? Yet we are talking about externalization of our market within the region. So it's a matter of law which we must push Parliament to begin looking at the laws as a whole. So that we accommodate ourselves within East Africa without what I can call petty legal barriers.
Petty legal barriers, and that of course brings the Uganda Law Council in the line of fire. Its inability to quickly be able to issue a license to anyone that is seeking to practice here in Uganda on account of what one of the Law Council members said is the need to inform members who are either lecturing at Makerere University and have other obligations and may need time to scrutinize the application for a license before they can, well, go on and issue one. But where technology is, or where we have reached as a world, I think Zoom can pretty much do, like we are talking to Honorable Ole Sankok in Nairobi. These Law Council members can sit via Zoom and discuss these matters. Why they have not done so remains to be seen. Barriers brought about by the politics of the day. Let's go for a break. When we return, we shall be delving into this matter further, but also asking Honorable Ole Sankok, the politics of the day is at play here, and I do not know how you look at things from the East African legislators' point of view. What should be done to ensure that there is no toxicity, especially brought about by matters political for relations between countries, particularly, as we say now, Kampala and Nairobi, on account of the arrest of a politician like retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm glad you're still with us. And Honorable Ole Sankok, I hope you're still with us, live from Nairobi. Hello, Honorable Sankok. Oh yes, you're still with us, and let me just continue from where we left off as we inched into the break. The politics of the day cannot be escaped in many of these discussions, and that's why we have with us here in Kampala a development that has put the prospects of labor export and migration and the ability for any one person to work across borders in the spotlight. How are you looking at matters regarding Martha Karua's desire to practice, at least for the case for which she's in Uganda for? How are you looking at it from Nairobi's point of view and in your position as the East Africa legislator?
First of all, I think when there was a scramble for Africa in the 1880s, the colonizers knew what they were doing and still know what they are doing now, that there is what we call political, socio-economic neocolonialism. Divide us into segments, segments that fear to be swallowed by other segments, segment Africa into small sizes. And you know, His Excellency General Yoweri Museveni normally speak passionately about size. Today, we have an economic bloc that have 350 million people. We have an economic bloc that have 1.4 billion acres of land. We have an economic bloc that have 6,500 kilometers of coastline. We have an economic bloc with the largest water tower in Africa and the second largest tower in Africa. So, of course, our size is now threatening our political, socio-economic neo-colonizers. And for them, they have to make sure that we don't have that that belief in ourselves. And I think that is what is coming in this particular issue of Martha Karua practicing in Uganda. Because I believe integration is all about is a Kenyan being treated in Uganda professionally the way the Uganda professionals are being treated. If today you come and practice law in Kenya, even if you have a degree from the University of Nairobi and you are a Kenyan citizen, you have to undergo a further training in the law, the Kenya School of Law. Again, you have to go through a privilege program in a law firm that is registered before you are admitted to the bar. So I think if Kenyans are treated that way, professionals in terms of law, and then a Uganda citizen come to Kenya and they are treated in the same manner that a Kenyan lawyer is treated, that they have to be admitted to the bar for them to be able to practice, I think then our integration is moving on smoothly. Because I don't expect today, if I'm a medical doctor from Kenya, just a general practitioner, and then I come to Uganda and I want to be a surgeon. You know, it is not possible. Because even in Uganda, a general practitioner knows their boundaries. So I think for us, in the issue of integration, and in the issue of the common market protocol, together with the free movement of people, that is custom union, we are perfectly on course. Remember, the East African Economic Bloc is the only regional bloc in the whole of the world that have a residential parliament, a parliament that is not contributed by members of parliament from Uganda, but a parliament that is paid by the East African community as itself and reside in a particular resident, like in our case in Arusha. In other parliaments like the Pan-African Parliament, it is actually members of parliament from Kenya who go, and from Uganda who go and sit there from the 54 countries as board members. But for us, we have a residential parliament that make laws. And I'm proud of what we have achieved so far. You know, to an extent of integrating our education system through the higher education, in the University Higher Education Commission, called USEA, is a move that makes sure that if you are qualified in United Republic of Tanzania, you can be allowed to practice in the Republic of Kenya or the Republic of South Sudan. So for me, I think the case of Martha Karua, whether you are Martha or you are a political leader or you are recognized elsewhere, I think the treatment was fair as far as what Uganda law says in treating their own qualified lawyers in Uganda.
And Kasim Kamugisha, what I pick generally from Honorable Ole Sankok's submission, especially on this matter, is that Martha Karua's, the developments around Martha Karua's desire to practice here are entirely a political issue. Otherwise, everything else is on course. Everyone requires to come and apply for a license. The fact that she's not getting one is where the debate should be. If I may ask, how long does it take for an average lawyer seeking to practice or meet the standards and the requirements as stipulated by the Law Council? What amount of time would you take, for example, if you are George Musisi seeking a license?
Actually, for people who are seeking, for instance, to get enrolled for the first time, it's until recently that we even started to getting as many people being enrolled. The Law Council doesn't sit on a daily, neither does it sit on a weekly, neither does it sit on a monthly. It used to sit, I think, at a quarterly. In fact, about 10 years ago, you could have about 1 enrollment or 2 in a year. And so we could have only about 100 lawyers getting enrolled. So it's still stuck in the bureaucracy, which brings to the question of, if we are going into labor integration, how responsive are the institutions? Because my brother Kasim said, and rightly so, that you can even apply for a practice certificate for just 1 case. I remember in 2001, the presidential petition of Dr. Besigye and Mr. Museveni. Mr. Museveni's lead team was led by a Kenyan lawyer, Dr. Kaminwa, and he got a certificate for just that 1 case. That is right. Now, if you're handling a certificate for just 1 case, which is going to take place for 1 week, and you take 3 weeks processing the certificate, how quick? So those are issues we should be discussing. That if a Kenyan lawyer wants to come to Kampala, he has been brought in as an expert for just 1 court case in commercial court. Can't we have a churning out system that you apply for a certificate, by the afternoon you have it? In any case, the credentials are already there. You're not getting educated afresh. Secondly, when it comes to this change of the local laws and policies, laws are influenced by the politics. So it should come from the political heads that this is where I want to go. For so long they've been talking about economic integration. Even economic integration, there's still so many hurdles. There's still so many non-tariff barriers, like we call them. But the political heads across the board, have they had a meeting of minds to see that this is what we want? Because the politics influences the laws. That is right. So I don't think that when you're talking about Kenya, it's at the same wavelength in politically with maybe DRC or Burundi, that this is what we want. And then, lastly, how do you have a buy-in of the people? Because the biggest part of the talk for the integration has been amongst the topmost decision makers. But have the Kenyan doctors, the Kenyan lawyers, the Kenyan accountants all bought in, and by Kenya I mean figuratively, Ugandans and all, that we all want this, we all want to cross border, or are some people still stuck in the protectionism and they don't want to go there? Okay.
Mr. Kamugisha, you can submit all that, but also afford us some insight on whether this particular case involving Martha Karua is an opportunity for reform, especially in how the institution of the Uganda Law Council operates. Can't we, for example, sit and attend a meeting online and have the board decide expeditiously on a matter as simple, so to speak, as issuing a license to a top lawyer within the region?
Amendment of laws or introduction of new laws is always out of a mischief. That there should be a problem which the amendment is intended to cure. And I doubt whether the framers of the Advocates Act had envisaged that there would be a situation whereby Dr. Besigye, for example, or Kamugisha will be a visitor of Musisi in Kenya, then something happens and he requires Musisi to be part of the legal team. And therefore, they hadn't seen that Besigye would be in, Dr. Besigye would be in Nairobi visiting Martha Karua, then he's arrested, then he's brought to Uganda, and Martha must be part of the legal team. And therefore, expeditiously cater for her to represent the doctor. Therefore, the mischief has come, that there will always be situations whereby you need a profession, an expert on board, but because of the laws, he can't be. Therefore, we have to amend the laws to accommodate that. Now, this therefore calls for the protocols of the establishment of the East African Common Market to be expeditiously concluded. Because then, if you conclude the protocols, you're talking about movement of labor, you're talking about labor in terms of services. And of course, lawyers will be inclusive. I don't know if it is also in the medical profession that you have to get a practicing certificate in Kenya.
No, he has indicated, Honorable Sanko.
He has indicated
that it's required.
So therefore, the colonialists were very, very tactical that you maintain the labor you have in Kenya there because you need it to be active and keep the Kenyan population strong as it produces for the industries of the colonialists. But now we are saying, no, we are establishing our own selves as a power bloc, as an economic bloc in the region, as a legal bloc in the region. Therefore, we need our labor to keep moving, crossing borders. Therefore, we need those to be amended. In that regard, therefore, we have to speak to our parliaments that look here, we have a mischief here, a legal mischief. Therefore, can we expeditiously look at the Advocates Act? And therefore, the Law Reform Commission is now getting put onto the table to begin these discussions. The Law Council, of course, in my view, is colonial in nature. Ever since it was established, I don't think there have been very many reforms apart from of recent where you can at least enroll very, very quickly, but also subject to their quarterly sittings, which hasn't changed a lot. So they have to come back to speed and say, oh, we're in East African community. There is now need for even applications online. You get cleared in the day, and then you come and practice. So the whole issue is at the integration of the East African community. Protocols are still moving slowly. They have to be effectuated very quickly. Number two, at the level of domestication of the protocols of the East African integration, the parliaments have to move very quickly and accept changes, not to be kept in the past. And the legal fraternity, especially the Law Council, cannot be left aside. Okay. And finally, I believe that the issue of Martha Karua is simply an eye-opener. There might have been many lawyers from Rwanda, from South Sudan, from Tanzania who have been coming here to assist in local cases and have been denied opportunity. But because they are not bigger names or they are not in political cases, they have not been really hard. So right. This is, in my view, an eye-opener that we have to move very quickly to catch up with the moving and changing world, especially East African integration. Okay, gentlemen in the studio, I'm going to have to allow Honorable Ole Sankok to go on with the rest of the business in the morning in Nairobi. Honorable Sankok, your last word on this before I can localize the conversation.
Yeah, before you localize it.
Okay, your last word, Honorable.
I think what we are seeing is, as I said earlier, that we have 4 pillars, of which 2 of them are almost fully implemented.
Yeah.
Now the political union, we already have a roadmap for us to have one state. And once we have one state, all these things will fall in place. But the roadmap towards it is, I gave an example of in the University Commission of East Africa, which then harmonize our education system. We also have the East African Research Health and Research Institution that try to harmonize our research, so that when we, in terms of health, so that when Uganda develop their vaccine, then it is accepted across board in the 8 member states. We also have CASOA, which is based in Entebbe, which deal with the issue of aviation safety and safety of aviation, so that we can also have one airspace, so that when you travel from Uganda to UK, you still believe you have traveled from our own common, local airspace, so that we can localize our airspace as East Africa. So what we are remaining with is actually the issue of the political union and monetary union, which will give us a common currency. Once we have the political union, we have one state, then you will be assured that we will have one law society of East Africa, not law society of Kenya, not law society of Uganda. We'll also have the East African Medical and Dentist Practitioner Board, meaning we'll have harmonized all these practices. But meanwhile, as we go towards those steps, let us accept that each country still maintain their sovereignty. When a country have their sovereignty, it means that it have its own laws guiding professions. So for you to be admitted to the bar in Uganda, as far as a Kenyan is treated the same way as a Ugandan lawyer is being treated, then we are fully integrated. You don't expect to be treated differently. If you go to the United Republic of Tanzania and you are a medical profession, you will then complain if you are not treated the same way medical professional with the same qualification is being treated in Tanzania. But if we are treated equally, because I believe Martha Karua had an opportunity to go through the application that other Ugandan lawyers go through, instead of just jumping in and saying that I can practice. Let us still accept that each country maintain their sovereignty. And finally, as I said, I urge all the 350 million citizens of East Africa that let us shun the political, socio-economic neocolonialism, because they will interfere with us. They will tell us that you, a smaller economy, you'll be swallowed by another economy. They will give us some excuses not to join hands, because once we join hands as a big economic bloc, we will be like what General Museveni normally referred to, will be like Russians who have gone to the moon, will be like Chinese who have gone to the moon, the Indians, the Americans have gone to the moon. But when we remain segmented into small parts, we'll remain as grasshoppers down here while people are watching us from the moon. UK is very powerful, Spain is very powerful, France is very powerful, but because of their segmentation, they have never gone to the moon. So
thank you very much.
To be together for our survival and prosperity. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable David Ole Sankok, Member of Parliament at the East African Legislative Assembly from Kenya. Those were very wise words, and I'm glad to be drinking from that cup, no doubt. Now, as we wrap up, we're going to have to localize this. There was a response yesterday to the Equal Opportunities Commission request into MPs' salaries, and the Speaker and the Attorney General said this matter is beyond the mandate of the Equal Opportunities Commission. I do not know whether the law was correctly interpreted in that sense, and whether it is right for Parliament to deny a commission as important as EOC information regarding anything that they might be looking out for. Have you followed this?
Yes, I followed this in Parliament. I heard the Speaker, and she was saying, the principle of separation of powers. And with respect, I disagree with her. I don't think that Parliament reports to the Equal Opportunities Commission. I hope she didn't mean that the Equal Opportunities Commission is supposed to superintend over Parliament. That's not true. However, if you look at the mandate of the Equal Opportunities Commission, it can inquire into any government agency or body in which Parliament, in terms of whether there are any disparities in discrimination, including the Attorney General tended to talk about only sex, gender, race, but including over political affiliation, where Parliament squarely falls.
That's right.
Secondly, the principle of separation of powers doesn't envisage a situation where one organ is supreme to the law. Parliament should be the epitome of accountability, especially when it comes to public matters. Our constitutional dispensation doesn't envisage any public body who earns a cent from a consolidated fund who doesn't report anywhere. That's why even the Auditor General, who reports to Parliament but can check the expenditures of Parliament. So I think it would do everyone well if Parliament, and by opening up, it doesn't mean that we are your supervisors. It's just meant to promote accountability. But because the extreme interpretation of the Speaker's decision would mean that Parliament is a body which doesn't account to anyone, which is not envisaged.
Kasim Kamgisha, whispers in the corridors of power indicate Parliament is a precinct you would love to be around. in the near future. Would you love the Equal Opportunities Commission to come and ask how much money you'll be earning in case you make it as a member of parliament?
Chris and George, we have to agree that the organs of the state are three, principally. That is the executive, legislature, and judiciary. And if you are to look very carefully, you'll find that the EOC, Equal Opportunities Commission, is an extension of the executive.
That is right.
So if I am to deeply read into the speaker's response, she might have interpreted EOC's request as an interference by the extended executive. Overreach of the executive into the independent organ of the state, which is parliament. But what the country has to know is that the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda gives the parliament a leeway to set its emoluments. Now, that becomes a serious problem, because then if I'm to set my emolument, it becomes very difficult that I will set the lowest emolument, because a human being is squarely greedy. And that is why Adam and Eve were chased from the Garden of Eden. They went for the other fruit. So don't forget that Equal Opportunities Commission its members are vetted by Parliament. But also it is Parliament. Yes, it is like judges are vetted by Parliament. But also it is Parliament which sets the salary for the Equal Opportunities Commission.
Just like it sets for the judiciary.
But we have not seen the judiciary going there. So I think it is a matter of understanding each other on how, when, and what should be our limits in terms of operations as the state's organs, but also the commission is established by the Constitution.
Kassim Kamugisha, a lawyer and Deputy RCC Wakiso, many thanks for the perspectives shared, and many thanks to you too. George Musisi, a lawyer with Pace Advocates, earlier we spoke to the Honorable David Ole Sanko, operationalize Member of Parliament from Kenya in Arusha. It's been a pleasure having your company this 4th day of December on Morning at NTV. On behalf of the team behind the scenes that ensures these 2.5 hours are as exhaustively informative as they always are, many thanks. I'm Chris Higenyi. Have yourselves a lovely day. I'll see you tomorrow.